you know what, we got to talk about this. So this is a huge marriage between GuardStreet, which provides all these services, and all of the businesses here in Northwest Indiana. You've got an in. If you get a hold of GuardStreet and you have a bigger business or whatever, say, hey, Jed said to call you. And Vince, who's now the CEO and is evidently way too important to come down here on a Tuesday morning. But there are some people that know what they're doing, including Scott Sachs. How you been, Scott?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
All right. She's going to adjust your audio. Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm the Chief Security Officer at GuardStreet Cybersecurity. Been there for probably since the beginning, and we're a pure, holistic cybersecurity shop. Soup to nuts, kind of proactive to reactive on the cybersecurity front.
So you have a business, they've got 20, 30 employees, that kind of thing, and they don't have any cybersecurity. What would be the progression once they decide to make that phone call or make that email?
Well, there's no one size fits all. So we take a very consultative approach with clients and look at what do they have, what do they need. We're really trying to fill the gaps. So if they've got nothing, we start building out the layers, right? Whether that's email protection, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. It could be penetration testing and vulnerability scanning. But doing some type of gap analysis is usually a great place to start to understand what they've got, what they need, and where we can assist.
So just before we go into the basics of this, most men and women that own these mid-sized businesses or small to mid-sized, they think, A, they're afraid of cybersecurity. If I just don't look at it, maybe I won't get attacked. And then second of all, they think it's going to cost them, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's just way too expensive for me. I guess I could just say from experience, knowing Vince Mazza and his family, that that's not the case. These guys are out to keep it affordable and also to give that small to mid-sized business some attention, right?
The cost of not doing something is far greater than the cost of taking care of what needs to be taken care of. And you're right. At GuardStreet, we've made sure to keep our pricing fair and reasonable. We understand that the big guys all have large companies that they're working with for protection. The smaller companies tend to not have as much, and we want to make sure that it's affordable and accessible to all of them.
And your name, sir?
Vince Maselli with Pulse Technology.
All right, and tell us about you.
I'm the VP of Technology Development over at Pulse. I oversee sales and IT. Within IT, obviously, is our cybersecurity stack, which we partner with GuardStreet on, and we work with companies from 10 employees to 200 employees to protect their network and their business.
Why so many billboards on 94?
We heard Indianans love billboards, so we just decided to keep buying them as they come available.
So I know Vince now when we talked on the phone, but my good friend owns 290 billboards. Is my level good? Yeah, can you give me just a little bit more? There you go. I've known him for 50 years. He has 290 billboards. That's Greg Kaplan and Crazy Kaplan Fireworks. So it seems like the region is dominated by Pulse Technology billboards and Crazy Kaplan billboards, and I'm all right with that. But you have come into Indiana a few years ago and are working with a lot of businesses here. You represent GuardStreet with their cybersecurity stuff. What else do you guys do?
Well, we do a lot of everything, pretty much a one-stop shop for all office and office technology needs. So specifically in Indiana, we do a lot of office supplies and office furniture. And then we also have our technology side, which is the IT and cybersecurity, print hardware and software, and we do a ton of AV and digital displays and video boards.
And there's other Masellis involved, correct?
Yep, we're a family-owned and operated company. My grandfather started it in 1955. Now my father's CEO, and then there's me and three of my siblings, along with our mother as well.
What's the Cyber Collective? Scott, you take that.
I'll start. The Cyber Collective is a group just like this. So it's GuardStreet and complementary partners have come together to really try and educate the world a little bit about cybersecurity and the products and services that we offer, and a way to educate and share information. Best practices and best ways to protect yourselves.
So let's talk about a little bit about that part of it. Protect yourself. A lot of times you guys are called in after there hasn't been protection. but the progression is, maybe to get some of that stuff in the first place. What is that stuff?
I would much rather deal with the proactive side of things than reactive, right? That's the worst phone calls that we get, are the folks who call up and say, we've got a problem. So protection looks like a variety of different things, and sometimes that's informational protection. Vulnerability scanning is a perfect example. We look at the network, internal or external, to see what's going on, what risks there might be. Protection around email, around phishing and spoofed emails. So there's all kinds of layers of protection that you can add on. Having something is better than nothing, and layers are important, right? So one thing isn't enough protection. We tend to layer on. It's also why we play really nice in the sandbox with everybody else, is that we don't say our solution is the best, or that if you've got something we need to replace it, we'd rather just augment it. So if you've got one or two things, let's add one or two things more. If you've got nothing, let's put one or two things in, and over time grow that to protect you even more.
Vince Miceli, and I have to say his last name because CEO is Vince Mazza, who once again couldn't make it today, but we'll leave that. But Vince, you've been a big proponent of, one of the starting points is to protect your emails. BEC in the world is, and we'll use BEC. That's business email compromise. Explain what that is.
Yeah, so basically, cyber criminals try to bypass all the security deterrents that businesses put in place by going straight to the employee, and usually the best way to do that is through email. And what these guys are doing is pretending or making it look pretty legit that it's someone either within the company or someone they would get an email from, and they're asking you to click on a link, and that link basically opens the front door. And it's really probably the quickest way to get through, because then they don't have to bust through a firewall or any of your other security layers. They just go, you open the door for them, and they're in.
So let's talk about those security layers. There's filters. A lot of people use Gmail. They use Microsoft Outlook. There's some Yahoos and that kind of thing. But those are, if it's like every business's biggest fear is somebody clicks on an email, opens that front door. How do you prevent that?
Training, security awareness training, and educating your people, just like any other job skill training. It's something that people probably will have to start doing with regards to their cybersecurity liability insurance. And not enough people are doing it. Employees are the number one risk when it comes to cybersecurity threats, because they just, we're all busy, we're all moving fast, and we might get an email and we not look at it as detailed as we should, and then you get hit.
Well, and cyber criminals know that, right? They understand that we're busy. They understand that, first off, the overwhelming majority of threats come in through email. And so they know that we tend to be responsive. Emails, texts, right? We all have our phones, we all have our computers, we got 1,000 things going on. So they're taking advantage of the fact that we want to be reactive and responsive. And it's easier to click on something than not to sometimes. And what we typically ask people to do is take that pause, right? Like, nothing should be that urgent that you have to do it right now. But every one of those compromises tends to come from something that's looking for some urgent activity. The challenge with business email compromise to some degree too is that it's really targeted, right? We can filter out malware, we can filter out spam sites and phishing sites. There's a lot of things that we do, and training by far is probably one of the best. But when it comes to some of these BEC campaigns, they're really targeted. It looks like it's come from you or your CEO or your vendor or somebody else. They're harder and harder to track systematically, but they're easier with training and with policies in place to prevent some of those actions from happening after the fact.
If you're driving around, that's Scott Sachs with GuardStreet and Vince Miceli with Pulse Technologies. This is being recorded. It'll be watched and heard many more other times than being live. But if you happen to be catching it live here on Tuesday, March 19th of 2024, it's a little after 8 o'clock in the morning. You can call us at 219-845-1100 if you have any questions about business email. This segment is specifically about business email compromise, and it's BEC, and what you can do about it, and what the role of a managed IT provider can be in email. You don't necessarily think of the other stuff like malware and stuff like that, but you also got to watch out for your BEC issues. Now, Managed IT providers, another term. Your average 30-person firm doesn't want to think about that, Vince, but that's something that you can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is that exactly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first step in anything is doing what we kind of call a cybersecurity risk assessment, and what that does is allows our engineers basically the full view of your network to find the vulnerabilities inside, so we can start presenting recommendations to start patching those holes. So as Scott said, we can put in email filtering to catch some of this stuff. The biggest, easiest thing I think is putting in some email solution that basically has the little tagline on the top of your email that says, this email is from outside your organization. We have one on ours. It's a big blue box, so it's really hard to miss. And sometimes that's all it takes. And sometimes you got to go a little deeper because people do click on things. These criminals have time, and now with AI and just creating emails via Canva or whatever they're using, they look legit. I know one of the email security awareness trainings we do is from Adobe, and it looks like it's coming straight from Adobe. And if I didn't know that we made it, I might have clicked on it.
So you're vulnerable too.
Everybody's vulnerable. Nothing is 100% unhackable.
Let's talk about it. You brought up a Canva email. We use Canva here. Everybody uses Canva. I think Adobe is getting, we're actually migrating, like a lot of people are, out of Canva to Adobe Express, partly because we do it with Adobe. We know everything Adobe Audition, which is the audio, and Premiere Pro with Sonny and Adriana over here. They know how to use that. But now we're using Adobe Express. We're not as experienced with it. I've seen those emails from Adobe, and I've seen one of the fake ones. It looks just like, oh, well, now we're using Adobe Express. I would click on it, but we have not, partly because we have that thing on our email that this is from outside your organization. But there are people that have clicked on them, and, give us a horror story. Well, you don't have to mention names.
No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We had a law firm, and it was unfortunate because it was the receptionist, and she got an email that looked like it came from a vendor, and she went ahead and clicked that link and opened the front door. It's like it's kind of like your house, right? You can have the alarm, you can have cameras, you can have the dog. Well, the dog might help if you open the door, but if you open the front door, they're walking right in and they can take whatever they want. And what happens is they may get in and they may sit there. And Scott and I were just talking about this. They may sit there for days, weeks, months, depending on the size of the organization, and kind of just start plotting and looking. And what happens is they may be able to take control of actually somebody's email internally. And I was talking about the lawyer, I switched to the manufacturer. So their CEO, this guy was in there probably for months, and he knew how he wrote emails. He knew how he where his calendar was, where he was going. So he ended up going on vacation in Europe, and he started emailing his CFO saying, hey, we need to wire money to this to buy this big heavy piece of equipment. And luckily the CFO's like, you're in Europe and you're emailing me to buy stuff that we usually don't buy. So luckily she caught it. But at that point, the damage done is really, you have to go in and do a pretty deep forensics guide on everything to find out where they're at, what kind of traps they set, because you can cut off the limb basically and prevent them from being in there, but there's background
traps,
malwares and stuff that they kind of put
I'm
in.
aware of the traps too.
So and that's crazy to think that I'm getting an email and it's from our email and I have no clue, right? And luckily, if you're trained and you're at least experienced in how this person emails, you're like, well, this is weird.
Well, this is weird. I'm going to come back to AI, but we're going to take a couple phone calls here, how AI comes into that. 219-845-1100. Once again, we are recording here on Tuesday morning. Let's take a couple phone calls. Hey, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, this is Uncle Danny. I got an email yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it said that somebody went took $400 from PayPal, and I did click on it, and I'm pretty I just wanted to know what the charge was for, but it seems like I'm falling right into that trap. What do I do now?
You want me to? I'll start. You can jump
you
in.
can
Scott
it.
Sachs from GuardStreet will take that.
So I'll say, what I would do now is, certainly if you clicked on something and entered credentials, change those credentials. So if you logged into something that you think looked like PayPal to try and get your information, go to PayPal Direct. Don't click on that link again, but if you have a PayPal account, go change your password on that. If you're using that password anywhere else, change that password too, wherever you might be. Good time to remind the audience that we should never use the same passwords at different sites. But certainly, if you clicked on a link and entered anything, change that information immediately. If you can, enable multi-factor authentication to prevent anybody from using those credentials. But that would be the first steps I would take to protecting yourself a little bit from what you just did yesterday.
So, Danny, did you enter anything?
What I did is, first thing I did is I went to PayPal to see if anything changed in my account, and it did. But the only thing I clicked on was the email itself, and saying that thank you for your $449 subscription to something. And I sent a reply saying, what the hell is this for?
All right.
And
all right. We're going to talk about that now. Hold on. Vince, you take that. Vince Miceli, he did reply, which is probably not advisable, correct?
Well, replying to the email isn't too bad because you probably didn't open a door, right? You're just replying to an email at that point, and most of the time you probably won't get a response back. Now, if they are patient, they'll start going back and forth with you, and this happens a lot. It's basically a ghost invoice, right? So you didn't pay for anything, and you're just getting an email, and the whole goal is for you to click on that link, and it's going to take you to a site that looks like PayPal or whatever else, and it's going to ask you to enter your username and your password, and then as soon as that's entered, they have your information. So if you didn't go the step where clicking on that link and then going in and entering credentials, you should be okay.
The only other thing to think about with that is by replying, you've kind of validated that it's a legitimate email account. So you may not get another PayPal-looking message, but you could get something from Amazon or from American Express, or pick the service. Pay more attention as emails are coming in. Make sure they're coming from the source. I always say that if you get an email from PayPal that you're unsure of, don't worry about what's in the email, go to PayPal Direct. If you get it from Amazon, don't worry about what's in the email, go to Amazon Direct. Follow the path that the things that are legitimate, but you may have made yourself a little bit more of a target by validating your email account, but if you didn't take any other action than a reply, I wouldn't be so nervous.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Excellent question. Thanks a lot. 219-845-1100. If you got any questions, we are recording here on Tuesday morning of March 19th, and we're actually coming up on the next step, which is, all right, guy like him, there's a lot of people like him, individuals, there's a lot of small businesses. They want to learn more. Is there videos? I mean, what else? I mean, how can they learn? I know, Vince, you guys have some videos available. Where would they find these?
Well, I know between both of our sites, there's over hundreds of videos.
Yes.
So you could either go to pulsetechnology.com and migrate over to our cybersecurity page with
GuardStreet.com.
Yep.
And do the same.
Yeah.
And I would say too. I mean, jumping back to that call a little bit. You had hit on it earlier. Business email compromise, the patient attackers are the ones who scare me the most, right? The folks who do a quick action like this, that, if they sent an email that might be looking to scam somebody on PayPal, and they, that's all they do. All right, that's one hit. They got one thing. But the folks, and you describe this a little bit with your client. I come in, like that CEO story where he was on vacation, but somebody had compromised his email. Those are the ones that are the hardest to find and the hardest to track, because if I'm that CEO, they sent an email to the CFO who knew that guy was out of town, but what if they sent it to a vendor? or somebody else, right? Another customer, anybody who wouldn't know that information. The patient ones, the ones that are really difficult to find, those are the ones that tend to be most destructive and most difficult to kind of wean down with using technology. Again, I go back to that training piece. So training is number one on my list for, because people are still going to get emails. You still have to take action on that. And policy plays a huge piece in that too, that it shouldn't just be one person at the company who can say, yes, I'm going to go buy $1 million piece of equipment. There should be a policy that, of checks and balances in there to make sure that those things don't happen. If you're that small company, coming back around to, to your question, yes, we've got some information on the site. I'd say the best is to not just to look at things, but call us, talk to us. We're happy to consult and help and explain a little bit more about what's going on and how we can assist in some of the best practices for your business.
Quick comment about AI in this.
Yeah.
We're bringing AI into this, and basically I can talk for 2 or 3 minutes into a microphone, send it, and they will reproduce my voice to read the news. And
Yep.
I hear it on other radio stations. I could tell. Just, they don't have it. They have it about 90%, and it's not exactly, but it's close.
You do the same with video too.
Same with video too, but they can also do it with writing something.
Yep.
You could put in your segments of writing and say, all right, well, write this email like that. So in the past, you could tell it wasn't exactly how that person would write, or there might be a misspelling or something like that. They've been able to get rid of that just using AI.
It's getting much, much, much better on all fronts, right? On the writing front, on the audio front, on the video front. But at the same time, there are also tools that are helping to identify that a little bit more. So it'll be a little bit of the battle of AI. And I have a feeling that at some point, either industry or government will come in with, kind of regulations around, making this more easily identifiable. But AI is becoming just as much of a challenge as almost anything else, because it's harder to look at that email that I think is coming from you. It looks like it's coming from you. It's written the way you would write it. How do I know? And I think the trick with that really comes down to A, making sure that it really did come from your account. B, making sure that it's like, okay, it sounds like, Jim, but is it really? And
They can even put inside jokes by looking at your social
previous
media.
And if I'm not sure, pick up the phone and call you, text
Exactly.
you, find out that it's really you.
It could be like, hey, dude, what about IU? We're okay. What about IU? This and that, and they can pull that off of social media and input that into AI, and then all of a sudden they have you writing that to your buddy who's a Purdue fan, and that scares the hell out of me. So,
but to some extent, I mean, like AI is just a tool. I can do that too as a threat actor, right? I could find your writings on social media. I can watch your shows. I can impersonate you. And so the threat actors have been doing this for years already, which is what leads to, right, these phishing scams and these business email compromises. AI has made that easier, but it's not unique to the situation.
So once again, here we are on Tuesday of March 19th of 2024. Let's just summarize this. We're talking about business email compromise, and this is for basically about 100 businesses that do stuff here, and for all of the other region businesses. You've got GuardStreet here. They are a cybersecurity firm, and they try to, individually and as for the business, they will, try to give you some protection. Also, locally, you have Pulse Technology, and you have Vince Maselli and his family also kind of working in concert with GuardStreet. And part of this is I want to make sure all of the businesses here understand this. So let's summarize this. The number one thing that people have to look out for when they're looking at their email, Vince, is what?
Domains. Check your domain names. People will try to pretend to look like your CEO or your boss or someone else. And what people don't see is usually it just says a name and not the email address. But if you click into that and look at the email address, you'll see that the domain at the end of that is different than what you're usually getting your email from.
Vince or Scott, your number one thing for people to look at in BEC?
I think it's paying attention very much, right? So it's not just where does it come from, but what action is it looking for you to take? If it's something urgent, if it's something that seems out of the norm, check, right? Follow policies. If you don't have the policies, we can help you build policies, but follow the policies to make sure that, you're not taking some sort of urgent action that's detrimental to the business. Pay attention to what's in the email, and when in doubt, check a known source on that.
All right, so somebody's listening to this and go, all right, he's got me. I need to talk to somebody about this. How do they get in touch with you or someone in your organization?
GuardStreet.com has got all of our. You can fill out the forms for contacting us. Our phone number's there, but GuardStreet.com is where you can find all of our information.
Vince, somebody wants to deal with somebody in Maryville, and they want to call you. They either want some office equipment or they want some of this stuff in concert with GuardStreet. How do they get a hold of you?
PulseTechnology.com. We have the form on there for everything. And then you could also call 847-879-6483 to get a hold of me. And we can talk about whatever you need to talk about with regards to your office.
All right, there it is. Scott Sachs, Vince Maselli. This is another in a series of videos for GuardStreet and Pulse Technology, just to try kind of keep the region safer online. This was recorded on March 19th. And until next time, see you later.